This one put up a fight. I think this is the first time I have ever power washed my firewood.
Hey everyone, appreciate you stopping by the channel today. My name is Matt and this is Firewood in the Field. And you ever have any of those projects or jobs that you need to get to that you just seem to never find time to get around to? Not because you don't want to, it just, for whatever reason, that's how it happens. Well, today is one of those days for me where I'm going to get one of those jobs done. I'll show you in the bed of the dump truck here. I've got a bunch of large rounds of cherry that I want to split up and get off to the side. And I should have done this months ago. And they are covered in mud. And I mean covered in mud. And that's my fault. A friend of mine actually cut this up. I think it was a tree on his property. He got a hold of me months ago and said, "Hey, Matt, I got this pile of cherry rounds. You want them?" And I said, "Yes, I hardly ever get any cherry. I'd love to have that." Well, it took me a couple months to get out there. And we had rain and rain. The fact that they sat there that long on the dirt, just got mud packed. I'm going to actually get my power washer out and blast the mud off these in the back of the truck before I dump them and split them today. So, a friend of mine, you know who you are if you're watching this. Thank you for the cherry firewood. Apologies, I left it sit in your yard so long. It is not going to go to waste. But without any more jibber jabbing, let's get to it. All right, we're standing here in the dump truck. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 large cherry rounds and mud. I'm just trying to scrape this off. It goes nowhere. It's so rare for me to get cherry. I'm not sure how it splits. So I'm going to use the Wolf Ridge. I'll probably just start off with a single way wedge, as I have very little experience with cherry. Very little experience with cherry. But I'm going to get the old truck started. I'm actually going to back it out close to where I have a burn pile and just hand toss all this bark and whatever I can get out of here into the burn pile and then get set up. I'm actually going to pressure wash the mud off of these things and then we'll get to splitting them.
All right, I haven't started the old girl in about 2 months. I do keep the battery on a trickle charger. We'll see how it goes. Truck run for just a minute and I'll back up, toss all the scraps, and get set up, start pressure washing the wood. Alright, just about set up. I am just using this little electric pressure washer. It's not real powerful, but it's good enough for the job today. say there's a first time for everything, and I think this is the first time I have ever power washed my firewood. I can't think of a time I've done that. You can see it's all cleaned up. All right, stay tuned. Let's head out to the field. Alright, it's getting later in the morning than I meant it to be. I need to get the splitter out here, get this split up. I might have to wait till later in the afternoon. I've actually got a couple errands I gotta run. So when we come back, I'll be out here with the Wolfridge 28 Pro X and we'll take care of this cherry. This is so hard to split. Naughty, twisty cherry. Maybe that's how cherry always is. I don't know. It's my first real experience with splitting cherry. try question for you guys that have dealt with cherry more than me. Is it always like this? The only other cherry I've ever split, I don't get very much of it around here, was 8 and 9 inch diameter logs. They were perfectly straight. I cut them to 12 inches and I split them with my box store splitter, and it's like splitting pine. It was just easy. Seems like every single piece of this one is like this. Double knots and twisties. Like I said, I have no idea what species of cherry it is. A little bit of a surprise. I didn't know what to expect. You know, I got through it, but it took me a little bit of positioning to find the weak spot in the wood where I could actually split it. All right, let's get set back up here and get going. This one put up a fight. Well, the damage is done. And that was a heck of a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. The camera overheated at some point. I'm not sure how much footage I got. When I go back and edit, I'll put together what I can, but I'm sure you got enough of it to see just how twisty, crazy, knotty all this stuff was. It's the most misbegotten looking cherry firewood I've ever seen. All right, well, that's two things I can take off my bucket list of things I've never done. First being using my pressure washer to wash the mud off my firewood. The second being having a fight to the death cage match with some naughty, gnarly cherry. So leave me a comment if you think you know what type of cherry this was. I'm in kind of east central Missouri, if that helps. And it had sat for a while. Is cherry the kind of wood that gets harder to split when it sits? Because these had been in rounds over at my friend's place for a couple of months at least before I got over there, and they sat in the back of my truck for another month. So leave me a comment, let me know. Is cherry normally this difficult? If I get cherry, do I need to split it faster? What's a better way to process cherry firewood? As always, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I'd appreciate it even more if you consider to hit those like and subscribe buttons. From Matt at Firewood in the Field, see you next time.